Owning a car is costing you a lot. Why, you ask? Well, because most of this cost you don't directly pay for like you do with, say, fuel, and therefore, for a lot of people, it goes unnoticed. To explain this, we first need to list the usual costs of owning a car, and those are fuel, insurance, maintenance, depreciation, parking, and tax. Now, if you were to ask the average person to name one way in which their car costs them money, they would probably pick one of these 5 costs. But it's actually this one that you should really be most concerned about. So what is depreciation and why should you care? Put simply, depreciation is the decrease in value of something over time. Yale University published a study on this that determined that cars in economically developed countries depreciate on average by 31% every year. To put that figure into money terms, if you were to buy a new average size car today for say $30,000, after 1 year you will have lost $9,300 solely on the value of your car. And after a second year, that car value would have decreased a further $6,400, and so on. In mathematics, they call this an exponential decay, and on a graph, it looks something like this. As you can see from the graph, if you want to maximize the amount of money you lose, then the best time to buy your car is when it's new. Now, one school of thought is that you could get around this by buying a car that simply doesn't depreciate in value. And yes, theoretically you could buy one of these cars, but what you're likely to find is that the vast majority of these cars tend to be of the classic variety, and you would have to keep them well preserved just to maintain its value. Also, practically speaking, they're not really a good solution for the average person that actually needs to drive to places. So then, what can you do? How can you minimize the impact of car depreciation on your wealth? Well, aside from solely using public transport, there isn't really a perfect solution, but there are some simple and very effective rules you can follow that really help. So, rule number 1, as you might have already guessed, is to buy a second-hand car. Remember, it doesn't matter whether the car salesman says that the new model comes with 14 cup holders and it does over 9,000 miles to the gallon, because remember, new cars depreciate in value the fastest. Now, if you're wondering how old the second-hand car should be when you buy it, a good general rule is to buy one that's 5 to 10 years old. I've found this to be a nice sweet spot, where cars have depreciated in value a lot since being new, but as modern cars, they're still likely to have quite a few years of life left in them. Rule number 2, I call the 15% ceiling. Basically, when you're buying a car, the maximum amount you should spend is 15% of either your annual income or your total wealth, whichever is higher. But ideally, the less you spend, the better. This rule is about not buying things outside of your means and also reduces that impact of a depreciating asset on your wealth. Here, by the way, your total wealth is all of your assets, like cash and property, minus all of your liabilities, like mortgages and credit cards. But I will be explaining all of that in another video, as that's a very important but separate topic to cover. Rule number 3 is to avoid car financing deals. I realise they can be very tempting because the car companies design them to be, but in most cases it's better to save up for a car and buy it outright. Rule number 4, try and search for a car that's fuel efficient, has low tax and is in a relatively low insurance band. When searching for a car myself, I realised that this task sounds a lot simpler than it is with the almost endless quantity of car choices out there. So, a useful tip that I picked up is to scroll through your latest taxi trips on your favourite taxi app and just have a look at the car models that taxi drivers tend to use. Okay, so let me explain. The reason for this is that taxi drivers' livelihoods depend on the profitability of their fares. So, most taxi drivers with a business mind will strive to find the cars that are going to cost them the least amount of money to run. therefore maximising their paycheck at the end of each month. They have essentially done all the research for you, so if you're really stuck in searching for a car, this might be a useful starting point, especially if you're looking for a 4-door car. Rule number 5 is to drive sensibly. There are 3 reasons for this, but the most important of which is your safety, and this should really go without saying. Secondly, driving sensibly will help keep your monthly fuel costs down. And thirdly, getting into car accidents is not only dangerous, but also expensive. Because not only will you have to pay for the repair to the car, but you'll also face higher insurance premiums the next year, and your car is likely to lose significant value when you come to sell it if it's been in an accident. All in all, if you follow even just one of these rules, it should help to reduce your costs for owning a car. So I hope you guys find it useful. If you enjoyed this, then you can let me know by tapping the like button, and if you want to see more content, just subscribe to the Wealth Pair channel below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.